Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
You have finally arrived. We have finally arrived at part
Part three.
three.
I hope it's been coherent so far. I hope it's
Yes.
like flowed. I think it has, but also I am like knee deep doesn't even sound deep enough for how deep I am into this case. So, there's a lot of information in my brain that I'm just trying to make sure makes sense to everybody else.
Yes. I mean, I did not do the research for this episode, and everything has made sense to me so far. So
Okay.
I think
Okay,
we're good, but
cool.
also our brains kind of operate on the same wavelength. So things that
Yeah.
make sense to us may not make sense to other people. So,
Yeah, that's very true. And I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you found it like informative because I spent a lot of time on this and I know there's a
mhm.
lot I left out. Like obviously we could have made this like a 10-part series, but
Yeah,
you have to cut some of it out at some point. You know, if
there
not,
reaches a
it's just an
point.
audiobook. I'm just reading all
Hmm.
the books. So, if there is anything that you were like, I cannot believe you did not mention X, Y, and Z, let us
Hmm.
know and then maybe we'll mention it in another episode.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll do a follow-up, an interesting tidbits segment of things that we weren't able to cover. Um, I don't know if we really have a whole lot to talk about because we are recording all three of these episodes in a 24-hour period.
Uh-huh.
So,
We are
um,
low on banter. I'm trying to
we
think
say
of what
that
I
as
did
we are
today.
now 41 minutes into this Zoom call.
We're not low on personal banter. We're low on professional banter. Um, oh, I know what I can talk about. This is a very
Okay.
like Seinfeld story where it's like nothing really happens. It's just like a day in my life. So I hope you guys are
Sounds
okay
about
with that.
right.
But so I had a doctor's appointment today. And of course, I show up, and this happens to me every damn time where I show up and they start, getting your blood pressure and whatever. And they're like, the doctor's delivering a baby.
Like, of course.
Today he's in an emergency C-section. I'm like, oh, cool. And they were like, he should be
Right.
back soon though. And I'm like, okay, cool. So thankfully it didn't take too long. Like my appointment was at
Hmm.
9:15 and he was back by like I was out of there by like 10:15. So it
Okay,
wasn't
that's
too
not
long. It
bad.
wasn't
Yeah.
bad. I thought it was gonna be bad, but
That's the thing, like you never know how long those things are. I mean, usually by the time the doctor's called in, like it's go time, so it shouldn't be too long, but
yeah.
also you never know. Like,
Yeah, you never know. So the lady like brought me back. She was like, I just want to get you ready, like get you in the room. Like you don't have to undress yet, but like just, wait. And I was like, okay. So we're sitting there and she's just a talker and I haven't had coffee yet because it was like an early appointment. I just was trying to
hmm.
get my life together and get there. And she was like talking and she was like talking about her email and she was like, I don't even know how to work this. I don't read these emails. I just delete them. And then she was like, I don't know how to do all this stuff. And it was kind of funny, but it was also so goddamn triggering as a supervisor
Right?
because I'm like, you're the person I hate. You're the person who
Yeah.
never replies to my emails. You're the person who doesn't understand how to send an email to more than one person.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was very triggering. I was just like trying to
You're
laugh it through, but I was like, just read the goddamn email and respond.
right. Like
Just
it's not
Google
that
how to
difficult.
do it.
These are skills we all need at this point in our careers in
Yeah.
2024. Just you need to learn
And
that.
I get it. Computers are hard. I definitely get it. But reading an email,
Yeah.
that one's, if you know how to delete it, you know how to read it. That's my motto.
She's choosing at that point just to
Yeah.
not read it.
But yeah, she was
Yeah.
very nice. She was very sweet. But that part to me, I was just like, oh, you were all of my employees who just don't understand.
I love to when I like send a lovely comprehensive email that has all the information you need, and then someone responds and asks a question that's very clearly answered in the email. Then I'm like,
Yeah.
if you would just have read the email I sent you, like I try to
Hmm.
make things concise. I try to not put a ton of extra words where you're like having a hard time understanding what I'm talking about, or you gotta like take notes on the email. Like I'm not out here writing these like novels, but like I'm gonna put all the information you need because I know you're going to ask me questions,
Hmm.
regardless apparently of whether or not the information is actually in the email. But just read the whole email and then you can answer
Yeah.
your own questions and you save us all some time.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's my little Seinfeld story where nothing really happened, but it's definitely something Jerry would have just like complained about in a stand-up bit, you know? Like my favorite, okay, we're just like derailing here. oh, this will be short and quick and this will be it. But my favorite one, and it's so true because this happened to us in Boston too, is like in one of the episodes he was talking and he was like, why do rental cars places never have the car? Like I made a reservation, so this car is here. What do you mean the car is not
Mhm.
here or there are no cars? Like I reserved a car.
Yeah, like what was the point of reserving the car then?
That happened in Boston. We literally, I mean, they told us it was going to be 45 minutes, and thankfully it was only like 20, but there were
Hmm.
like 15 people waiting on cars. And like
That's
me
so
and like three other
crazy.
people were like, yeah, we made a reservation. And I'm like, where's the car?
Yeah, like isn't that the whole point of the system? So this
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Anyway,
Just
okay.
those life scenarios that are just relatable to everyone, you know? Unless you're the person that doesn't read the email and you're sitting there being like, no, I just don't,
Ooh,
it's fine.
sorry. It's like, okay, well, don't ask me questions on it later.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So picking back up, we were in the middle of the trial, quite literally, middle of the trial. And we had just been talking, Dr. Irwin Golden couldn't testify, so his boss testified, and we're kind of talking about the autopsies, and now we're about to get into DNA evidence. So the DNA testing was quite convincing. There was quite a bit of DNA in this case. And for one of the blood drops on the path at Bundy, the odds were 1 in 170 million that it came from anyone but OJ. So those are pretty good odds.
Those are
And
pretty high.
yeah. And for the blood on the socks found in OJ's bedroom, the odds were 1 in 6.8 billion that they came from anyone other than Nicole Brown. So again, I think the only issue here is they also knew each other. So it's like how the blood got there, I think is kind of what can be disputed on that. And it's the defense attorney's job to dispute that.
Yeah.
In several dozen tests, the DNA results match the prosecution's theory that OJ's blood to the left of the bloody shoe prints at Bundy and Ron Goldman's blood in the Bronco and on the bloody glove at Rockingham, and then OJ's blood in the foyer of his home in on Rockingham. So like all of those, kind of how the prosecution is saying like OJ came to Bundy, killed them, got in his Bronco, came back. It's all there. And at this time, this case had more DNA evidence than any other criminal trial in US history. So, this trial is a
Wow.
lot of groundbreaking stuff, and DNA evidence was one of them too.
Yeah.
So, Marcia Clark personally had a lot going on during this trial. She was in the process of getting divorced, and she had two sons she was trying to take care of. And she was also facing heavy media scrutiny. Marcia decided to change her hairstyle, and the media went crazy about it and was discussing it. And like, all of this. Tabloids would discuss her private life and report on any man she was seen out with. And the Inquirer had even tracked down people to find photos of Marcia at a nude beach. And they printed the photo with a black bar across her nipples. And so, like, while this criminal trial is going on for the murder of two people, tabloids are printing practically nude photos of her.
That's so crazy. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is just a lot to deal with. Like you're a prosecutor, you're not a celebrity. Like you don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rumors were also flying during and after the trial that her and Chris Darden were romantically involved during this time, and both Marcia and Chris have denied those allegations. So, as the trial continued, she started to arrive late to court, and this really did not set well with the jurors since they were required to be up at 5:30 a.m. most days and were basically being held prisoner during the trial. Again, they're sequestered. The jurors were forced to eat all meals together. There was no telephone or television in their rooms, and there were two cinema rooms that show blockbuster rented movies that they could watch. So, you don't even really get to pick. It's just like this movie or this movie. You can watch one of them. There was a telephone room where all calls were monitored. They were allowed one night a week for a conjugal visit with their spouse or significant other. They were not even allowed to sleep with their room keys at night. So every night at 11 p.m., the deputy watching them gathered all of their room keys. And I
Wow.
guess, yeah, like I guess at one point a juror was like, why? And he was like, we have to make sure that like you're not leaving your room because then you can't get back into your room. basically. So like kind of held prisoner. Like you get a conjugal
Yeah.
visit. Like
Yeah.
it's
Like, and only one a week.
yeah,
Like,
it's yeah, a lot. So Judge Ito thought the trial would wrap up by February, but it was soon going into the summer. So the jurors and alternates are obviously getting stir crazy, and eventually some jurors had to be dismissed as well due to discussing the case. And they were down to six alternates and possibly months left on the trial, which is not good because no jurors mean a mistrial. And these people have already been sequestered for like months at this point. So rumors went around frequently about jury misconduct, and Judge Ito would frequently bring them to his chambers to question them about it. So not a great time for the jurors. And so obviously with Marcia coming in late and not taking it maybe as seriously as they thought, they're just not very happy with it. I wouldn't be happy either if I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning after being up at 11 so a deputy could take my room key.
yeah, definitely not.
So the next big part of the case was the brown gloves found at the Bundy scene and the Rockingham house. So detectives started out by trying to track down where the gloves were sold and bought, and they were a size extra large with the trade name Aris, not sure, and style number 70263. So Aris was the biggest glove company in the world at the time, but this particular style number is a small part of its inventory. And these gloves were actually like pretty rare. So, investigators asked Nicole Brown's parents to locate her old credit card bills, and they found a purchase at Bloomingdale's around Christmas 1990. And the detectives went to Bloomingdale's in New York to locate the sales receipt. And on December 18th, 1990, Nicole Brown brought two pairs of Aries Lights leather gloves. And they also found that while Bloomingdale's had received about 12,000 pairs of Aries Lights in 1990, only 300 were brown and size extra large, and only 200 were sold. So, not a lot of these gloves out there. Only 200 of
Yeah,
them were sold.
it's a very small number.
So, when the glove evidence was presented, the prosecution debated whether or not they should have the evidence gloves like on OJ's hands. Like, should we have him put the glove on? So the gloves had gone through a lot of testing that could have altered their shape, and also OJ would have to wear latex gloves to try to like try them on, and that could also alter the fit because it's is a piece of evidence. You can't have people just touching it with their bare hand. So they were like, you know what? We're not going to do this. This sounds like a bad idea. And Marcia passed the word to Chris Darden. She was like, do not do it. Whatever you do, don't do this. Darden tried to bring gloves similar to the evidence gloves in for him to try, but that was not allowed by Judge Ito, and the jury had been dismissed while they discussed. So again, jury who's being sequestered all this time have to just go sit somewhere else while all these discussions are happening. So Darden asked for OJ to try them on while the jury was out of the room, and Marcia was shocked. She was like, "What?" And Judge Ito was distracted and brought the jury back in before. So now, like, the demonstration is happening with the jury in the room. Like, exactly what Marcia Clark and the prosecution did not want to happen.
Yeah, exactly what she was trying to avoid.
Yeah. So OJ went to put the glove on and he appeared to keep like his thumb bent to an extent. And this was another reason Marcia didn't want to do this because she was like, OJ has control over the experiment and opportunity to alter it. And OJ grimaced and said to Cochran, but really, like looking at the jury, too tight. So Darden tried to get him to straighten his fingers and get it on better, but the defense objected. And he asked OJ to pick up an object. And OJ did so in a weird way with like his thumb out. Um, and he asked the witness on the stand, who was a glove expert, if they would have fit at like his hands at some point. And he said yes, but this didn't really mean much to the jury who just saw this glove be too small on OJ's hand. Like it's not meaning much when with their own eyes they're seeing it not
When you're
fit.
looking right at it, yeah.
So a lot of people believe OJ did not fully try to straighten out his fingers and actually get this glove on. Kim even talks about this like in the book by the family. She was like, it literally looked like he was just like crumpling his fingers and being like, "Oh, I can't get it on." Which like, why wouldn't you? Like, even if you're innocent, like
Exactly.
I'm not gonna make this glove look like it fits. Like,
Yeah.
and there's also speculation that the defense instructed him to stop taking medicine for his arthritis, which could have made his hands flame up, which again would make the gloves not be able to fit because your hands would be a bit more
Hmm.
swollen. And he also had the latex glove on underneath to not tamper with evidence, which can also affect the ability to put the glove on because, like, latex under something, you're not going to be able to get that on as easily.
Like you're now wearing two layers, like of course. Like
Yeah.
William Bodziak was a foot and shoe impressions expert, and he testified about the shoe prints at the scene. So he said the shoe prints were a size 12 Bruno Magli shoe. That sounds like a kind of shoe that I cannot afford, so I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that because I don't know that brand. Oh, and this very next line, I have read this, I promise. A shoe that retailed for about $160.
Yeah.
Again, back then, so probably like over 300 today, I would
Yeah,
assume.
at least.
So Boziak said the individual who made the impressions was probably a little more than 6 foot, and OJ was 6 foot two, and like only 9% of the population, he wore a size 12 shoe. So Boziak also found a slight impression on the rug of OJ's Bronco. He also had photographs showing that these were the only shoe prints at the scene. And he also said that the impressions on Nicole's back and her dress also matched the size 12 Bruno Magli shoe. F. Lee Bailey handled the cross examination and tried to imply that two people arrived to the scene in the same footwear. His cross examination went poorly and really made Boziak look smart and credible. And OJ had the final straw at this point and did not want F. Lee Bailey in court again. And OJ also said he would never wear those, quote, ugly ass shoes. So.
Yeah.
On July 6, 1995, after 92 days of testimony, 58 witnesses, 488 exhibits, and 34,500 pages of transcript, Marcia Clark finally said the people rest. And now the defense got their time to present to the jury.
So only halfway through this trial
Yes,
at this point,
only
almost
halfway.
almost 100 days in.
So Cochran first called OJ's daughter, sister, and mother to speak highly of OJ and his character. He also called two witnesses who said they heard things closer to like 10:25 p.m., which would throw off the prosecution's timeline, which would not be good for the prosecution. And the defense also wanted to try and debunk any of the physical evidence and tried to portray that the LAPD could have possibly framed OJ. They were not entirely off base for this argument. They argued that a vial containing blood taken from OJ was missing 1.5 centimeters while in police custody. And there's also the issue of the two socks that had blood evidence on them, because two defense experts did not see any evidence of blood stains. The prosecution also did not report the stains until August, and the bloodstains also contained EDTA, which is a chemical preservative used to prevent blood samples from clotting, so it appears the blood may not have been like transferred directly. And the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsies admitted to making 40 errors during his examinations. So,
Yeah.
a lot going on here. So Dr. Henry Lee ended up becoming a star witness for the defense. Dr. Henry Lee is pretty notoriously known in high-profile trials, and he said that the shoe imprints were from two different sets of shoes. He also poked a hole in the prosecution's assertion that the murder took place in a quick fashion. He said he couldn't say how long, but that it was not a short struggle. He also slammed law enforcement and how they handled the evidence. On July 7th, the defense got a piece of information that would also help make the case. The private investigator, Pat McKenna, found a woman named Laura who was in possession of some tapes of Mark Furman and his police work. And he said things like, quote, plant evidence and, quote, get inwards. And after a lot of back and forth with Laura and the judges, the tapes arrived at Cochran's office on August 9th. So Judge Ito asked the tapes to be sealed for the time being, and only the lawyers on the case could listen. And another issue on these tapes is that Mark Furman referenced Margaret York, and he said on the tape that she had, quote, sucked and fucked her way to the top. Now, this is very important because if you remember from part 2, I think, Margaret York is Judge Ito's wife. So,
So, remember how we mentioned a lot of conflict of interest? Like, this is like double the conflict of interest.
exactly. So they brought this to Judge Ito on August 14th. And it's also significant because Margaret, in a sworn testimony, said that she knew little about Furman, except he was at one point under her command. So this could indicate that she lied under oath, which I mean, also maybe she just like didn't know him and he thought he knew her, you know?
Yeah.
But this could be a mistrial if she did know him better than she indicated she did on the stand. So Judge Ito said that he could still be impartial, even though it hurt to hear criticism of his spouse. And he said another judge could listen and determine if Ito was still fit to preside. So Ito was cleared to so Ito was cleared to continue presiding over the trial, and Ito also allowed the defense to play a portion of the tape to the jury, but only the parts where Furman used the N-word. So they called Furman back up to the stand to ask him about his use of the N-word in the last 10 years, and he did not answer and instead said, "I plead the fifth." So for any of our non-US listeners, he is referencing the Fifth Amendment, which protects you against self-incrimination. So he basically is allowed to not answer the question and say that he pleads the fifth. But pleading the fifth is basically saying yes without
Yeah, it just
legally saying
doesn't
it.
look good. Yeah.
Yeah. And the defense also asked him if he had perjured himself earlier in the trial, and he pleaded the fifth again. And they asked him if he planted or manufactured any evidence in the case, and again, he pleaded the fifth. So,
Which is very bad that you can't at least say no.
yeah,
Like,
you can't even say no that you didn't plant evidence in this case. Like, what?
yeah.
So, in total, the defense called 53 witnesses. OJ was not one of them. He was allowed to make a statement to the court without the jury present, but he did not testify. So, this way, he was not able to be cross examined.
Which the prosecution was very upset about.
Yeah,
Understandably so, because it's like, why is he allowed to make a statement, but we can't
exactly.
like cross-examine him? Like that's not fair, basically.
Yeah, that's the whole point of like why people are afraid to put defendants on the stand because then they're open for cross examination at that point. So yeah, like it's
Hmm.
not fair to, oh, well, I'm allow you to have your say but not be questioned by the other side. Like that's not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, September 26, 1995, they began closing arguments. So Marcia Clark thanked the jury for their time, and she brought up Mark Furman and said that, like, yes, he may be racist and lied on the stand, but that does not change the fact that they proved OJ guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense then started their closing arguments. Cochran attacked the prosecution's timeline. He also brought up the glove demonstration, and of course said the notorious line, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." He downplayed the domestic violence and talked about the corruption in the LAPD. And Marcia Clark was given one last chance to speak to the jury. So they had previously made a chart that was titled Unrefuted Evidence, and it had the non-DNA and non-Furman evidence on it. And Marcia said she would leave it up for a little bit so the jury could take notes on it, but no jurors did. On Friday, September 29th, the jury selected a foreman, and then Judge Ito told them that deliberations would start on Monday. And when the jury sat down, they took a preliminary vote, and the results were 10 for acquittal and 2 for conviction. So they broke for lunch, and then they came back again and had a unanimous vote. So they deliberated for about 2 hours after this 9-month trial. Like,
9 months. So you also were not allowed to discuss the trial at all until
mm-hmm.
this moment. And like, y'all don't even look at each other and be like, the fuck was that? You're just like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, like 2 hours. I did not know that about this case, and that blew my mind when
Hmm.
I read that they only deliberated for 2 hours after a 9-month
Hmm.
trial that they have been sequestered for. Like you said, they've not been able to talk to anyone. They've not been able to discuss with each other. Like the amount of
They
evidence that was
didn't,
presented in this case.
yeah, they didn't ask to like relook at anything. They didn't ask any follow-up, like nothing at all.
Yeah. Like they had made up their minds and there was no discussion and they were done. Like they're just like, get
And
me
I
out of here.
honestly feel like
Like,
it was like 10 people were like, I assume they were like, this was such a mess, and the whole Mark Furman thing does not look good. Like
yeah.
the glove doesn't look good. 10 people were like acquittal, 2 were conviction. And I feel like those other 2 people were like, yeah, I don't care that much. I'm
Yeah. They're
tired.
like,
I
I
want to go
don't want to be
home.
stuck here any longer. Like, sure,
Yeah.
acquit him. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. So the jury contacted the lawyers and said they would read the vote the next morning at 10 a.m. And like us, everyone is shocked because they're like, I can't believe this happened so quickly. And as I'm sure many of you listening know, OJ was found not guilty for the murder of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. He had been acquitted, and the jury left the room, and one juror did hold up the Black Power symbol before leaving. So it is possible that OJ did kill the victims and was also framed by the LAPD. Like that's not out of the realm of possibility. But the extent of like how the LAPD would have had to frame OJ by how the defense laid it out does kind of seem impossible. They would have had to have planted at least the following items: Simpson's blood on the rear gate at Bundy, Goldman's blood in Simpson's Bronco, Nicole's blood on the sock found in his bedroom, Simpson's blood on the same sock, and the glove at Rockingham. So there's a lot of different pieces here. And the defense never like explained how all of this could have taken place.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot to happen, like a lot of blood to keep track of to be like this is this person's, this is this person's like
Yeah.
and also I
And
mean
so many different locations
and a lot of people were showing up quick. Like there were a lot of
mhm.
officers and like don't get me wrong, I'm sure in police departments there's a lot of corruption, but I would think with
Mhm.
how many, I mean you heard us listing all the officers' names and how
Yeah.
quickly also like the news and tabloids showed up. I'm like, how could you have gotten all that done and like not
Mhm.
one person been like, maybe we shouldn't do that? Because there's like people
Yeah.
from all different departments with this.
That's true. And obviously, this case was very expensive. They estimated that this trial cost the city $800,000 every month.
For
Like,
9 months.
yeah. And OJ also said he was committed to finding his wife's killer.
So there was a lot of blowback from this verdict, and a lot of people were saying the jury acquitted him solely based on the fact that he was black. And a lot of people also like to reference the juror giving the black power symbol as he walked out as a sign of this. Um, and again, this was kind of right after Rodney King, so a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's just like like trying to like get it even or whatever." But a few jury members have come out publicly saying that was not the case at all. So four woman Amanda Cooley said all the jurors were surprised to learn that so many people thought race played a role. She wrote that quote, "It's important that people know this was not a racist thing. I'm black and Mr. Simpson is black. However, Mr. Simpson lives in a white world. When we signed up to do our civic duty, it was people versus Orenthal J. Simpson, not people versus racism, or people versus the politicians, or people versus battered women and children. I'm just as sensitive to racism as the next person is, but people need to know that was not our case whatsoever." So, again, kind of talking about like OJ was rich, so it's not the same. Like,
Yeah. Like she's like, he's not one of us. Like,
yeah. So Marsha Rubin Jackson, who was also on the jury, said, quote, "I don't understand how people could say I let someone go because he was black. It really angers me for people to say that because I was a black woman, I let this black man go. If they'd proven to me that this black man had killed two people, that black man would be in prison. Simple as that." And I do think this is one of those things like we know what we know now.
mhm.
Like we can look at this case like this, but for the jury, they were sequestered and couldn't hear any discussion about weird things or what was happening. And like, you're like,
Yeah.
there's way too much doubt in this case of like, I don't think the prosecution put together a good case.
Yeah.
I don't think like I can see why the jury maybe found him not guilty based on their evidence. Like,
Like there were so many things that the prosecution fucked up in this trial that it's like, according to our legal system, like if you cannot like prove
mhm.
someone guilty, you have to acquit them. Like,
Yeah,
uh, yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I not to put my opinion out there, I do believe OJ did it, but I also understand why he was acquitted, and I kind of get it
yeah,
because it's like you had too much shit going on. You
yeah.
had too much shit going on.
And we said that before in like several cases that were like, yeah, I think this person
Hmm.
probably did it, but also feel like legally this person should have been acquitted based on the
Yeah.
information that was presented in court because it's not, you can have a gut feeling that like someone did something, but
Hmm.
also if the prosecution can't present you the evidence to demonstrate that that's what happened, like that's not how our legal system works. So,
Yeah. So, a little more than a year after the not guilty verdicts, a civil case was brought by Fred Goldman, Ron Goldman's father, and the Browns. They combined the lawsuit that Sharon had filed with the lawsuit filed by the Goldmans and the Browns, and the judge ruled out a lot of the evidence from the criminal trial. The judge ruled out all mention of Furman's racist attitudes, his brutality in the past, and willingness to plant evidence, and his taking of the Fifth Amendment. So he's like, just don't bring up Mark Furman at all. Don't touch any of that. And he ruled that any sloppiness of procedure or rule infractions committed by those who gather the blood and other scientific evidence would be excluded from the jury's consideration. So Dr. Henry Lee would also not be allowed to give opinion on the evidence collectors. So like we kind of know like it sounds like they messed up a lot, and the judge was like, "Okay, we're just not going to talk about that because it's like, okay, it's sloppy and rule infractions, but like, can we just get to like what actually is like
Get to
happening
the
here?"
heart of what happened in this case. Yeah.
Yeah. So the civil trial began on October 23rd, 1996, and lasted until February 4th, 1997. Unlike the criminal trial, the jury was primarily white. Civil juries are also different, and you only need 9 of the 12 jurors to agree on a verdict, which I didn't know that you didn't have to have all of them.
No, I didn't know that either.
So Kim was not allowed in the room during depositions because only the parent's name for Ron could be on the lawsuit. So Kim's name could not be there. She couldn't be in the depositions. But she tried to stay out in the hall to like make her presence known. Like she was still showing up and like couldn't be in the room. And she said one day she did come face to face with OJ and he smiled at her and Kim yelled at him to not do that. And I guess she like beat herself up later and she was like, that's the best I could come up with. Like, don't do that. But like, just especially like when you believe in your heart, like this is the man who killed your
Yeah.
brother and he smiles at you, like,
You're like, get out of
ugh.
here. Yeah.
So the civil case also focused on the infamous shoes. So introduced in this trial, but never seen in the criminal trial, was a series of photographs from the Buffalo Bills versus Miami Dolphins game in 1993. OJ was a sideline reporter for NBC at this time, and these photos showed OJ wearing a pair of suede shoes that were identified as the Bruno Magli shoes. So those ugly ass shoes he would never wear. There is now a picture of him wearing those shoes. um,
Wow.
so yeah, like he is swearing up and down. He never owned a pair of their shoes, only a pair of slippers by the company. And now there's photo proof that that was a lie. And Marsha Clark in her book was also like, I wish we had this photo during the criminal trial because that would have been a pretty big thing, I think, too.
Yeah, definitely.
So the jury ruled in favor of all the plaintiffs and against the defendant. So they didn't even have to worry about having 9 of the 12. They were all agreed. And on February 5th, 1997, OJ was found liable for the willful and wrongful death of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, and it was found that he committed battery with malice and opportunity. And as I mentioned, all 12 jurors voted him liable, and the jury ordered 7 million and compensatory compensatory
Compensatory.
oof, compensatory. I'm leaving that
I only
in.
know that from my friends here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is not a video medium, but Jacqueline just showed her Law and Order SVU shirt. But
My favorite shirt of all time that I wear
shout out to
many times a week.
Olivia and don't tell me Elliot
Good job.
for helping us out there. So
Yes.
so those damages and 12.5 million in punitive damages to the Goldman family. The jury ordered 12.5 million to the estate of Nicole Brown, which her children are the beneficiaries, and OJ kept refusing to pay the amount he was supposed to pay, and in time the amount grew to over 38 million because it increases at a rate of 10% per year. So when he doesn't pay, it keeps increasing on the amount he has to pay.
Wow.
A 10% interest rate on a loan is pretty high. So
That's quite a bit.
A lot of people accuse the Goldman family of, quote, cashing in on the situation, but Kim feels this is their one way to fight against who they believe is the killer. And I truly believe it was not about the money for them, it was about finding him guilty in some court. Um,
It was
you know,
about some other entity being like, yes,
hmm
this man did kill your loved ones. Like, especially
yeah,
after like the slap in the face of the first trial, it's
hmm
like someone else acknowledging that, like, yeah, we agree with you.
yeah, and kind of being like, oh, you think you got away with it? Well, we're gonna make you live through all of this in a civil trial. And also, like, he's a rich man, so how can you hurt him the worst? Take his money.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so Mark Furman was later charged with perjury, and he accepted a no contest plea to avoid a possible 4-year jail sentence. And he got 3 years of probation and a $200 fine. He's now a convicted felon and no longer allowed to be a police officer in California. I think we can all cheers to that. Lou Brown started the Nicole Brown Foundation in 1994, and this foundation was to help victims of domestic violence. Nicole's sisters have also spoken out frequently about domestic violence, and Lou died in 2014 at the age of 90. He had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and Johnny Cochran actually passed away in 2005 from a brain tumor. So OJ wrote a book called If I Did It. And when the Goldmans heard about this book, they did start a boycott against it for obvious reasons. So HarperCollins did offer a settlement, but said they could not stop the publishing of the book. I guess they were saying like once the agreement was in and it was like starting to print, there was like no turning around, which is like wild that that's a
That is
thing.
crazy. Yeah.
So OJ had made a company, Lorraine Brooke Associates, LBA, using the middle names of his two daughters, and this is how OJ was able to get $630,000 from the publication of If I Did It, because again, any money he gets has to go to his civil
Hmm.
case and like paying those people out, which also like half of which go to your children, so like
Right? Like, why are
weird.
you fighting it so hard? Yeah.
Yeah, so he basically created a company to like find a loophole. So,
Also, a company named after his two daughters that he's actively avoiding trying to pay.
yeah. So the Goldmans contacted their lawyer and started to fight on this front. The California State Court awarded them the ability to sell OJ's rights, title, and interest in If I Did It at an auction to be held by the Sheriff's Department of Sacramento in April 2007. And right before the LBA had filed for bankruptcy and like the whole deal was off the table. So I guess HarperCollins couldn't stop it, but because this entity filed for bankruptcy, the deal fell through. LBA was later found to be a fraud company. So obviously, I think we all knew that. And the Goldmans finally got the rights to the book, and they agreed to publish the book and turn over 10% of proceeds to the bankruptcy court. And the Browns did not really agree with the Goldmans' decision to publish the book. So the Goldmans did receive a lot of backlash for publishing the book, and they have been called hypocrites and going after, quote, blood money. Um, I don't agree with that. I mean, to me, I skimmed the book because I literally was rolling my eyes through 80% of
Yeah.
it. But like to me, reading this, I'm like, this is a confession.
Yeah.
It
I can
it
see why
reads
they're
like a
like,
confession.
I want this out in the world. Like, I can understand that viewpoint, you know?
Yeah. So here are the highlights from the book. Again, these are in OJ's words. So he talked about the beginning of their relationship. He did mention getting mad and hitting her car with a baseball bat. He said during her pregnancy that Nicole was obsessed with her weight and not gaining anything, and that he didn't care about the weight, and that he only wanted the child to be okay. I, Courtney, believe this was written to try and dispute Nicole's family allegations that OJ had called Nicole fat multiple times during her pregnancy. So there was a lot about that. Like Nicole was pregnant and he's calling her fat. He's making comments about her weight when she's pregnant. To me, this is him being like, I never thought that.
Yeah, like,
I
oh,
never
she thought that
did.
about herself. I did not do that.
Yeah. He also says that Nicole's writings that were found detailing the abuse were all complete fiction. I guess she just wanted to be a novel writer who OJ was the main character of. I don't know. He said they fought, but it was never as bad as she had written. He said he never beat her, and even in the 1984 incident when he was charged with spousal abuse, that he only dragged her out of the bedroom and pushed her in the hallway. That's it.
Only, only.
Hmm. And he said if Nicole was alive, that she would tell you the same thing. He even goes as far as to talk about the nights of the murder and saying, like, I went over there to scare her because of the way she'd been acting. He talked about running into Ron Goldman. He blacked out and then saw blood everywhere, and he hurried back to Rockingham to get in his car to the airport. And he says before the murder, Nicole wanted to be back with him and had left him notes. And OJ is like, this is all a work of fiction. It's all a work of fiction. I'm not sure what acquitted person in this world who claims to be innocent would write this book of practically confessing in quote fiction.
Yeah, like that makes absolutely no sense.
If you were acquitted of a crime, why would you write a book and be like, well, if it happened, this is how it happened? That makes no sense.
No.
And it's not like he's doing it. I mean, he is doing it for money, but he had written another book as well. Like he wrote a book like responding to people's letters and stuff. So it's like you have plenty of shit you can write your books about. Why are you doing this?
And like legally, you're not entitled to any of your money anyway. Like you're supposed to be going to someone else. Like, why would you keep trying to make money knowing that like eventually you're not gonna have that money, which I guess it didn't really. Anyway.
Yeah. So after the acquittal, OJ moved to Florida with his children, and he did run into some issues with the law in Florida as well. In February 2001, he was arrested on charges of battery and burglary of an occupied vehicle, stemming from a road rage incident in December. So a motorist accused OJ of reaching into his vehicle and pulling off his glasses that were like on his face. Like
Wow.
I don't mean to laugh, but like who the fuck does that?
Like what is yeah.
How do
Wow.
you get so close that you can reach into someone's car?
Wow, that's crazy.
Anyway, OJ faced up to 16 years in prison, but was acquitted in October 2001.
And we are still not done. So 2 months later, the FBI and DEA searched his home, investigating an international drug and money laundering ring. And OJ's lawyer said he was targeted due to a suspect mentioning his name in the statement. So no charges came from this, but OJ was sued in federal court by DirecTV because they found equipment capable of stealing satellite television programming, and he was ordered to pay $25,000 in damages. On July 4th, 2002, OJ was cited for speeding through a manatee protection zone and failing to comply with proper boating regulations, and he had to pay a $130 fine. And while he was acquitted on the murder charges, he did find himself in trouble 13 years later. So on September 16th, 2007, OJ and several associates were accused of setting up a meeting with Bruce L. Fromage? I don't know why my brain froze because I was like, where do I
I
want to
thought I
start
like, oh
again?
my God, my fucking internet went out because you didn't even like blink, and I was like, oh no, the internet, because it was like so still.
I just short circuited. You could leave that in. I was just trying to decide where to go back, but I'll just leave that part. Bruce L. Ramond and Alfred Beasley. They were memorable. So they were memorable.
Memorabilia.
I know
Billy?
the word. It's just
Memorabilia.
not going.
I'm just helping out since I couldn't say that other word.
They were memorabilia buyers. And they were to meet in a Las Vegas casino hotel room. So Bruce and Alfred had autographed OJ memorabilia as well as the suit he wore in court the day he was acquitted, and they had planned to sell these items. So one of the associates, Michael McClinton, said that OJ's friend Charlie Elrich agreed to pretend to be a buyer to set up a meeting with Bruce and Alfred. And OJ asked McClinton to go be his security. So Clarence C.J. Stewart was another friend who came along. Allegedly, OJ and his associates rushed into the room with guns, stole the memorabilia, and fled the scene. Bruce later said OJ looked very angry when he walked in, and OJ told them to pack up the stuff quickly and go. Someone was recording the whole incident, and OJ could be heard on the recording saying, "You think you can steal my shit?" And they grabbed everything, including autographed game balls, plaques, Joe Montana lithographs, baseballs signed by Pete Rose, neckties, and other items. One person even stole Bruce's phone, hoping he couldn't call the police. Bruce and Alfred went to the front desk to ask for them to call the police and said they were just robbed by O.J. Simpson. Police did not take it very seriously and even made a joke and was like, was Al Cowlings there too? And police interviewed O.J. twice before arresting him. At the time of his arrest, O.J. said he hadn't stolen anything and that he was just getting back stolen stuff that belonged to him and that nobody was roughed up. However, there were recordings from after the incident, and OJ can be heard saying it was a strong arm robbery. And McClinton said OJ was drunk and just thought it was funny and was like laughing about it. OJ's lawyer, Yale Gallanter, said that OJ was set up by investigators and that he had no criminal intent in the incident. OJ was convicted of 2 counts of robbery with a deadly weapon, 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count conspiracy to commit burglary, and 1 count burglary with a firearm. OJ attempted to appeal his conviction but was denied, and on December 5th, 2008, OJ was sentenced to 33 years in prison for the Las Vegas robbery, but could be eligible for parole after 9 years. C.J. Stewart was also convicted during this trial. McClinton, Elrich, and the other associates got plea deals for their cooperation and were given lesser charges, and they spent no time in jail. Stewart did get a new trial on one of his appeals, and he accepted an Alford plea, and he was later released from prison after serving 27 months of a 7.5 to 27-year term. In July 2017, OJ was granted parole. The parole board cited his family support, good behavior behind bars, and completion of anti-violence classes while imprisoned. And at his parole hearing, he said, quote, "I've spent 9 years not making excuses about anything. I'm sorry that things turned out the way they did. I had no intent to commit a crime." And OJ was officially released from prison on October 1st, 2017, with conditions including abstaining from large quantities of alcohol and avoiding association with ex-convicts or people involved with crime. OJ was under parole until September 29th, 2022, and People magazine asked the Brown and Goldman families their feelings on this. And Tanya Brown, Nicole's sister, said, "If he chooses to try to live life as a decent human being in the world, then hey, go for it. If he wants to get his life together, fine. If he chooses to go the other way, fine. I just don't care. But the minute he messes up, he should be treated just like everybody else. If you speed, you're going to get a ticket. If you break the law, you're going to get in trouble. I don't think he should be treated any different." Goldman's father, Ron, and sister Kim said in a statement, "While we respect the Nevada Parole Board's decision to release Simpson, it's still difficult for us knowing he will be a free man again. We will continue pursuing the now $60 million judgment awarded to our family after the jury found that Simpson willfully and wrongfully caused the deaths of Ron and Nicole, as well as remain dedicated in our commitment to domestic violence awareness, victim advocacy, and judicial reform." In May 2023, OJ revealed in a video on Twitter, or X now, that he underwent chemotherapy for an undisclosed type of cancer. He said he was healthy and was happy now, and that it appeared he had beat cancer. 2 months later, he posted a video denying having a heart attack. He was very active on Twitter and posted many videos after his release. And in February of 2024, he also posted a video saying rumors that he was in hospice care were not true. Sydney and Justin live in the St. Petersburg area and try to live a quiet life now. Sydney got a sociology degree from Boston University, and Sydney and Justin both work in real estate. O.J. Simpson died on April 10th, 2024 from cancer. He was surrounded by his family. There is a rumor that he made his family sign an NDA, and some people speculate that he made a deathbed confession. But again, those are just rumors. We don't have anything to substantiate that. In 2018, OJ had speculated it was possible that he had CTE, which is a brain disorder associated with like multiple hard hits to the head. If you follow American football, this is very common in many players as well as some boxers. CTE can make people have memory loss, confusion, violent tendencies, and many other symptoms. And you can only like determine CTE after someone is dead. And OJ's family refused to let them test his brain for CTE after his death. The man who discovered CTE said he would bet his medical license that OJ did have CTE. After his death, the FBI released their documents that they had on him, and it is a 475-page document that focused primarily on the investigation of the Bruno Magli shoes and details the evidence, including blood, hair, and clothing samples. It also references photographs, but those photographs are not shown. OJ also still owed $33.5 million in the wrongful death lawsuit, and his longtime lawyer, Malcolm Laverne, is the executor of the estate and is trying to prevent this payout. Malcolm said he hopes the Goldmans get no money from OJ's estate. OJ Simpson was featured in the In Memoriam segment at the 24th BET Awards on June 30th, 2024. So this kind of surprised a lot of people in the audience and got some mixed feedback because they're like, wait a minute. The Bronco from OJ's Chase is on display in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee at the True Crime Museum, Alcatraz East. And the trial of O.J. Simpson obviously was talked about nationwide. O.J. has been the conversation for decades, but we do often forget the victims, Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, especially Ron Goldman. We would like to read the victim impact statements from the Goldman family that they never got to read due to the acquittal, and they can be found in the book His Name is Ron.
Okay, so we're just going to read Kim and Fred's. And sorry if you can hear the pages on the book. I'll try to not move the book too much. So this is Kim's victim impact statement. And she said, I have thought long and hard about how and what to say. I think I got up in trying in some way to say something that would affect you. But then again, what could I possibly say that would affect a beast who slit his wife's throat and leaves her for his children to find? And a beast who traps his victim in a corner, brutally stabbing him over and over, 30 times over. A beast who has no remorse for the pain, grief, and anguish he has left behind. How could I possibly affect a beast who beats, quote, his wife, end quote, his house, and blames her? A beast who, while in jail, signs autographs and writes a, quote, poor me book during the trial of his murdered wife. A beast who walks around chatting and telling jokes while the victims' families sit a few feet away. A beast who cares nothing about finding the true killer because he knows he wouldn't have far to search. What could I possibly say that would inflict as much pain on you that you've left with me? What could I do to you that would leave you feeling as empty as I am? The answer is nothing. There will never be anything that would reach my level of sadness, which will forever be a part of my life. All I can do is tell you that while you were so enraged, wielding a 6-inch blade, stabbing Ron in the heart and lungs, that while you were viciously and maliciously cutting Ron down, you single-handedly in 1 minute's time destroyed all of our lives. You took my best friend, my confidant, my only sibling. You took my hero. You stripped society of a gift, Ron. You took his dreams, his hopes, his future. You took a wife and family that will never be. You took his entire life, a human life. What gave you the right to take all of that? Did you know with that each time you sliced my brother, you were cutting me too? With each stab, you were taking pieces of me. You've killed a huge part of me. So while you may have thought that you were physically hurting only Ron, you were simultaneously taking away my life. What gave you the right to my life? My life was to be shared with only my brother. We depended on each other completely. We knew each other better than anyone. We were to share our successes and our failures together. We were going to raise our children together. We were supposed to share our adulthood together. We were going to be together forever. We were inseparable. What gave you the right to destroy that? I will never again see his smile, hear his voice, or listen to his laughter. I will never again hold his hand, touch his face, feel his arms around me, or give him a kiss. I will never again be able to tell Ron how much I love and adore him. I will never be able to express my pride for his accomplishments. I will never be able to sit in Ron's restaurant, the Akeem, Ankh. So sorry. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. I will never again have my big brother to comfort me in sadness and celebrate me within good times. I will never play with his son or daughter. I will never have him walk me down the aisle. I will never be able to see if my children look like their Uncle Ron, and we will never again share memories. My photo album will be empty, and I will never again have someone say how much we look alike and how similar we are. I will never hear the words, "You are my best friend, Munchkin, and I love you." I will never again be whole. I will forever be asking myself the what ifs, the what should have beens, the could have beens, and what will never be's. I will forever be tormented with the desire to have Ron by my side, and what will you, a double butcher, be tormented with? I have a few wishes. I wish that for the rest of the days that you walk on this earth, you're shadowed with guilt, and that it slowly and quietly engulfs you until you wither up and disappear. And until that happens, I wish the society ostracizes and harasses you and labels you the butcher of Brentwood that we proved that you are. I wish you a misery and a never-ending nightmare, and I wish that Ron's eyes, the same eyes that watched you slaughter Nicole and then watched as you plunged the knife deeper into his body, the same big brown eyes that watched as you left him to die, that they always follow you wherever you go. I wish that Ron's face is what you wake up to in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, the image of a beautiful young man, a bigger man than you will ever be. Ron is a hero. You savagely butchered a hero. I will never let you forget.
Wow.
Which is so sad.
Yeah.
Like, because it is like her and Ron were so close their whole life.
Hmm.
And it's just, he was 25.
Yeah.
Like, I think I forgot that point, like that part. like how young he was.
Yeah, like just how young they were. Yeah.
Okay, and Fred's is a little shorter, and so we're going to read that now too. Sorry, it's taking a long time, but thought it was important to read since they kind
Yeah.
of get the shit into the stick sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
To the sociopathic coward who murdered my son, the desire to confront you, to tell you exactly what I think of you, has simmered and burned in me since it became so obvious that you were guilty of taking away from me forever the opportunity to hug my son and share his life and laughter. Now that I have the chance to confront you, I realize with breathtaking certainty there is no dictionary, not the source on earth that contains the words I need. You took from Ron his entire future. You took from Ron his dreams, his future successes. You took from Ron the opportunity to laugh, to feel the sun and the wind and the rain. You took from Ron the opportunity to marry a woman he loved and who would love him. You took from Ron the opportunity to have children and to be the most unbelievably wonderful father this world could imagine. You took from Ron the love of his family. You took from Ron the joy of watching Brian, Michael, and Lauren grow into fine young people. You took from Ron the opportunity to share the rest of his life with him, his sister, his best friend, the other half of his soul. You took from Ron the love of Patty, more of a mother to him than he had never ever had before. You took from Ron the love of a father whose love and respect for him was deeper than he could have ever known. You took from this earth the kind of man you never were, never have been, and never could be. Nothing can change that. No amount of anger I could vent or tears I could shed will alter the one heartbreaking fact that my son is gone forever, and there will be no words that will ever bring him back. In a just world, you would have been found guilty of savagely murdering two human beings. You would have been sentenced to death. You would have spent the past year sitting in a sunless cell, awaiting the day justice would be carried out. I believe that this world would be a better place without you. There's nothing more to say. You're not worth any more of my words. You're not worth any more of my energy. And you're not worth any more of my passion. And you are not worthy to walk in Ron's shadow.
Yeah, and those are the senseless murders of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown.
Yeah, just so sad. And like, I don't know, this one is just so hard because, and I mean, we can debate all day long. I mean, probably not on this podcast because I think we both think the same thing. But I mean, you can debate whether he did it or not, whether he
Hmm.
should have been found guilty or not. But like, so much of this case gets lost in the OJ of it all.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like the Goldman family themselves are like, we won't even call him OJ. Like we call him like, I can't remember what it was, like the killer. They're like, we're not
Hmm.
using that name. And it's like it all the press was OJ and OJ and OJ. And it's like there were two people who were murdered. And it's like
Hmm.
if OJ was so committed to finding his wife's killer, like you never went and like tried to actually figure it out. Like it's just very frustrating and just very sad that Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman get so forgotten in this whole
Hmm.
thing.
Like they're lost in the OJ stories and the theatrics of
Mhm.
the trial and the aftermath and the books and there's just like so much that people forget that there were two human beings who died that night.
Yeah, and like the primary book for this research, The Run of His Life, was written very shortly after the trial.
Hmm.
But it barely mentioned Ron's name at all.
Wow.
And so many of the books that I did research for, like, just didn't even mention him at all.
Mhm.
And
Just
it's just
wild.
so sad.
Yeah, it really is. Well, after listening to us talk for over 3 hours about this, I'm sure you guys don't want to hear any more commentary or thoughts. So we will just leave you with our lovely little perks of the week and be on our way. So, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that it rained today. And
That was
it has
nice.
been very hot and we've been in a drought. And it was
Hmm.
just, and it was like kind of a nice little summer thunderstorm. And it was just a lot of rain that everything needed. And so I'm just happy that we got a little bit of rain because, and I know like in the rainy season, we're like, more rain. Oh my God, I'm so sick of rain. And when it's raining all the time, we're not thankful for it. But trying to remind myself to be thankful for all things and to be in a place that has seasons and rain and
Hmm.
all of that. So
We did desperately need the rain. My
It
poor
was,
plants, my poor lavender has been struggling, but that rain
yeah,
was very much needed.
yes. So kind of a not great one, but that's what I have. So
Mine will be even better, don't worry.
that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
I'm gonna give you guys a little ASMR here.
Oh my gosh, the little things you've been eating like this whole time.
So, yes, so that bag was let me set it back down before I keep talking. My lemonade Sour Patch Kids. If you guys have not tried the lemonade Sour Patch Kids, please do. They're a summer specialty, so you got to get them
I
here
don't think I've
soon.
ever had one.
They're so good. I would say I'll save you some, but there's no way these are making a
You'll buy
Saturday.
another bag and then I'll give me a bite.
Okay, perfect. But they're so delicious. I love Sour Patch Kids. I love sour. They're so refreshing. Um, yeah, and they are just delightful. And yes, every time Courtney was speaking tonight, I was eating away at my Sour Patch Kids.
Yeah. It is
So
very hard starting the episode to not chuckle when I just see like the little is like a kid sneaking like a snack.
like immediately like you're like 3 seconds in and I'm just like popping that bad boy open. Here we go.
Yeah.
But also can you tell that we have recorded 3 episodes in 24 hours by our perks of the week? We are
Hmm.
slim pickings at this point.
We're scraping the barrel.
But there's always something to be thankful for, as Courtney said. And this week it is rain and lemonade Sour Patch Kids. So
Yes.
let us know all your thoughts on this case. We would love to politely, civilly discuss this case with all of you.
Hmm.
You know where to find us on all the places. We're in the show notes. We got some lovely links. Um, we are on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes, which maybe you're hearing this on because you joined because you wanted all three of these parts immediately. Or maybe you're like, I need some breaks in between those. I don't need them all at once. But
Hmm.
either way, we do have a lot of other fun bonus content over there. So check us out.
Yeah. And also last week there was a bonus release. So even though we did this three-parter, Patreon still got a bonus. So be sure to go over there. And
Yep.
if you give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that has some kind of rating system, YouTube, you can like, subscribe, leave a nice, friendly comment. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime. And they can be found in the book His Name is Ron. Okay. Yeah. Understand.